Good morning. So we're going to show you some really cool stuff in terms of the new product. But what we wanted to do just before we jump into that is we wanted to tell you just a little bit of a story. We were challenged this year with going out and talking to our customers. What exactly does that mean? What do we want to talk to our customers about? Well, it occurred to us that if we got feedback from people who are actually using our products and examined their usage cases and asked them about their points of pain, what worked well, what didn't work well, what they would like to see do better, what kind of feature requests they might have, we might be able to build a bigger, better BricsCAD V20. So we embarked on a listening tour. But there was a matter of mechanics. How would we pull it off? Well, Heidi got on an airplane, and she went all over the place. I got on Zoom meeting, and I covered 14 different time zones across all kinds of continents. We did road shows. We held training at Hexagon Live. We took notes. We listened, and we tried to understand exactly what our customers are experiencing so that we could figure out how to do a better job for them. I'm just going to build the dots here. This took us to 10 countries, 4 continents, and 28 live customer events and visits all over the place. It turns out that if you go to where the action is, you see a variety of different usage scenarios. You see people doing underwater dredging, above ground dirt development. You see manufacturing. You see people doing concert stages. You see all kinds of usage scenarios. So as we did that, we listened, really critically listened to what they told us so that we could understand exactly what they needed from us to do a better job. And from that listening tour and distilling all of that, built the feature list and the action plan for the BricsCAD V20 that you'll see demonstrated in just a moment. What did we hear? What did people actually tell us? So when we went out and showed BricsCAD to people, by the way, we did a study where we had people use BricsCAD and we turned on their webcam and we actually looked at their facial expressions and asked them questions about how is it going and all that. And we kind of tallied all this stuff, and can you guess by what I'm showing you on the screen right now what the number one request was? It's dark, isn't it? Yep. Dark UI, far and away the number one. Yes. I am a fan. I was one of the guys asking for that. Yeah, what we heard is, wow, that's really white, or can you turn down the brightness? Your request is our command. So you'll be seeing this demonstrated. As Heidi and Hans jump in, you'll actually be seeing it in action. Other things that we heard was that from an interface and workspace point of view, people wanted a familiar, easy to implement, easy to learn, and acclimate to user environment. We're aware that a lot of people coming to BricsCAD are coming there from other programs, so we want to make that transition simple. So Heidi was really a huge advocate for getting the new workspace environment set up and the different ribbon arrangements, and she'll be showing you that as she toggles through her demo. So we really listened to that, implemented a new quick access toolbar, a new startup, launcher, and a much more discoverable and easy to control quad input so that new users can be just as at home with it immediately as experienced users who already understand the quad. But enough of me. Let's get over to the action. So over here is Heidi Hewett and Hans de Backer, and they're going to be your cruise directors today for looking at our demo features. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Heidi.
Great, thanks, Robert. Yeah, we're really excited to share our new user interface with you. And I'm going to go ahead and start by actually launching BricsCAD V20. You can see that we've got our different product licenses there. So depending what license level you have, you'll see what access is available. And you can easily update or upgrade if you want to access a license that you don't currently have. But I'm going to step you through and just show you some of the UI that's available in there and how you can view tools even if you don't have the access yet with your license level. Starting off right away, I'll go into the drafting workspace. What you can see here is we've got a new Start tab, and we've got your most recently used files. You can create new drawings, open existing drawings. We also have a Learn and Applications tab for you to access learning content as well as third-party developer applications. I'll just go ahead and open up a drawing and take a look through the interface. As Robert mentioned, we've got the quick access toolbar up here, and this has the most frequently used tools that you will use regardless of which workspace you're working in. So a lot of just commonly used tools up there. And over on below that, you'll see the ribbon. So this is the default drafting ribbon. But we really have a default workspace for any of the environments that you work in. We want to make it easy. One of the things that we learned from customers is that most of you are working in 2D right now. A lot of people still work in 2D, but you want to go to 3D and you want to go to BIM. So what we did is make it as easy as possible for you to move from 2D to 3D to BIM or mechanical. And what you see here again is the drafting workspace with all those 2D tools that you have in a core BricsCAD classic license. But very easily, if you switch over to a modeling workspace, you'll see that you have a very similar UI with access to those 3D modeling tools, in addition to the drafting tools that you still need to create a lot of the 3D profiles and that kind of content. From there, you'll notice that we have some new tabs on this workspace, the BIM and mechanical tabs. Now, if you don't have a BIM, mechanical, or ultimate license, you won't be able to use these tools. But you can see what's available, and you can, if you choose to upgrade, then you can migrate pretty easily from the existing tools you were used to in a modeling workspace up to BIM or mechanical by just seeing the tools that are available in addition to what you've been working with in 3D. But for an optimum workspace, we of course offer you BIM and mechanical workspace. These are optimized for those workflows. So it looks a little bit different, but it's got the tools that you need if you want to work most efficiently either in a BIM or in a mechanical type environment. Now we do know, here's the mechanical one, just for a quick look there. We do know that a lot of people also like to use toolbars, and of course everything I'm showing you is completely customizable. But for those people that like toolbars, we still have the drafting and modeling toolbar workspaces available. So everything, kind of available by default, how most of our users want to work, but again, all customizable. Now, I don't want to leave out that, actually, before I go to the quad, I want to point out the panels. These are some great improvements that we have across workspaces in V20, and these are stackable panels that you can display. Previously, we had the ability for you to stack panels and then display them by tabs, but you can see that if you stack a lot of panels, like your attachments panel, the layers panel, properties, the ones that you use most often, you can have quite a few tabs up there and you can't necessarily read them all. So what we did is give you the ability to stack them and display them as icons. By doing that, then you can roll them up out of the way, easily access all of them, and really maximize your screen space. But it goes much further than that. For those of you that really want to maximize your screen space, you of course can use clean screen, turn off all your tools, and we have the wonderful quad available right there at your cursor. So this is really a heads-up design access to your tools. They're context sensitive, so depending on the type of entity you pass over or where you are in your design or within your command, it will give you tools that are available specifically for that context. And from some users, we hear that they like the quad sometimes, but they want to turn it off easily as well when they don't need it. So we've added this little X up here that is a huge request that we've had from users. You can just close that out and always turn it back on from the status bar. So a lot of big and little enhancements that we've made, again, in response to the user feedback that we got. All right, so I'll hand it back over to Robert.
What do you guys think? Looks good? Another thing that we heard quite a lot, and actually I think Heidi and I were kind of surprised as we went on some of the visits, is that civil engineering is a lot more important to most of our customers than we might have thought. What we heard was that whether we're moving dirt around on the surface of a construction site or whether we're moving mud around underwater in a canal or trenching something out in the North Sea, it turns out that moving dirt and computing basic volumes and having basic surface alignment capabilities and grading is something that was important to many customers. So some basic civil engineering features have been grafted into V20. Now, is this a civil design suite? Will this allow you to design subdivisions or do analysis? No, but it does up the bar on the basic features that you will have available to you in a BricsCAD license without any kind of verticals, without any expensive kind of add-ons. Now, if you want to go the distance, then you need to come to the presentation that the guys from Civil Site Design are giving, because they'll show you a lot more about their solution. But at this point, I'll shut up and I'll let Heidi show you what we've got up our sleeves for civil features.
Great. So what you can do with the civil tools is you can actually create tin surfaces. You can create those from a data file where you have all the points stored. It automatically creates the tin surface, and you can use that for your model. There are various properties when you select that tin surface that you can use, for example, to turn on contour lines. And then there are other tools for editing the tin surface. In this example, what we want to do is just kind of crop the surface so that we add a boundary so that we see specifically the area that we're most interested in working on for our design. Now here we're going to focus on creating a little pond in this area. So using the smoothen tool, we can very subtly smoothen out the area of our terrain to create that pond. And then we can use the deform tool, and as we specify the profile that we want and an offset for it, you can see as I pass the cursor over that it actually gives a preview of where it's going to go, so you can place it in the best spot, and then simply drag up or down to deform that surface. There are other tools, such as the alignment tool, and in this example what we're going to do is create a rail corridor for the train station that our architectural team is designing. And to do that, we can simply pick some key points for our alignment that we're creating, and by snapping to those points on our design, picking the start point, passing kind of through our train station area and the end point, it automatically creates alignments, horizontal, vertical, and we can have it create 3D alignments automatically. Now these alignments are all linked together. So as you edit an alignment, the others, if you edit one, like the 3D alignment, the others automatically update. And you can control various properties so that you can see and adjust the design alignment for how close it matches the terrain alignment, the actual surface alignment. Now, in this case, if we're designing a rail corridor, we probably don't want to follow the terrain too closely. We want our train ride to be smooth. So what we can do then is modify or create gradings so that our surfaces will actually be appropriate for our design. Here we're creating a grading that we offset the alignment to each side, and even as we create the gradings, we can still continue to edit our design. We can change the shape of the alignment, and the gradings follow because they're all associated. We'll continue with the design, creating additional gradings, and we could create a grading that goes straight down from the alignment down to the terrain, but what we're going to do is actually create a grading that goes from our flat surface that we're using for the rail corridor and give it a slope that goes down to the terrain. And we'll do that on both sides. And then once we have the gradings created, in this case, we can go ahead and merge those gradings together. So we have 4 different gradings all associated with the alignment. We merge them together, and then we can actually create a tin volume surface between our design, those gradings, and the terrain. With that tin volume surface, we can select it and look at its various properties, including the cut and fill volumes. So a lot of power here, and this was just one example doing this rail corridor, but you can imagine using this, for example, as the platform for our building, our train station building, or many other projects, dams, and just about anything else that you could imagine in a civil type environment. So those are just, and these are tools that are included with BricsCAD V20 with a Platinum license.
Love it when the software works, right? Another thing that we heard when we went out and talked to customers is that Heidi would always show Blockify and Parametrize, which are 2 of our kind of AI machine learning generation tools. And these were always very popular demos. And the feedback that we usually got was, wow, that's cool. Nobody else is doing that. That was the number one thing that was very nice to hear. And then right after that, what we heard was, what else? So what other cool things can you do? So that sounded like a challenge to us. Challenge accepted, right? So Heidi is going to be showing you some Blockify improvements and a new feature called Copy Guided. And we're also going to take a look at some futures, some things that we're working. They're not all the way baked yet, but they will be pretty soon. So we want you to take a look at that. So Heidi has a couple of demos that she's going to show you. And I'll go ahead and get out of the way and let Heidi show you around.
Great, thanks, Robert. Yeah, I do want to emphasize that, as we were meeting with customers, again, many of them still work in 2D. So we love the 3D functionality, is really cool, but we don't want to forget, and I think Eric mentioned that as well, we don't want to forget about 2D, and we want to make our users as comfortable and productive as possible. So again, from our user feedback, this is some of the things that we're able to offer with V20. In this case, I have a floor plan, and this floor plan right now has some geometry that represents desks and chairs. And if we look closely, you can see that these are individual entities. They're not blocks right now. Looking at the properties, you can see that the desk and the chair make up or are composed of 18 different entities. If I select similar for all of those, it's over 4,000 individual little entities. So the drawing's a mess, and that's not good drawing practice. What I'm going to do is just use Blockify and take all the defaults. So very simple for me, I don't have to think too hard. Taking the defaults now with V20, BricsCAD actually looks through the drawing database, the block database, and if it finds a block definition that matches that geometry, it automatically replaces all that geometry with those existing block definitions and instances. So really powerful functionality there. But it goes even further than that. Right here, now we've got these two individual blocks, the desk and the chair, that it created automatically. What we can do is use the Blockify tool again, and there's a setting in it that lets us detect patterns for arrays. So if we enable that setting, then selecting just a set of these desks and chairs, I'll just select 2 of the desks and 2 of the chairs. Doing that, and taking all the defaults from there, BricsCAD automatically goes through and looks for patterns that match those 2, and it generates arrays from there. So very quickly, it's able to find those patterns. If I select that, it doesn't look any different, but now I can see when I select it that it's actually an array, and it has the properties of an array, as if I had created it manually, but it did it much quicker. So I can change the values, maybe increase the number of rows and columns. And again, saving me a ton of time. If I had to clean this up all myself, it would be quite time consuming. So those are some enhancements to Blockify, which was my favorite V19 2D tool. Now, I think in V20, one of my favorites is going to be this copy guided. By the name, you can tell that it's probably something to do with copying entities. And what I'm going to do is select this chair, and I want to copy it to other locations. Anything I select, anything that falls within my selection window is copied, but anything that the selection window crosses is used as guidelines. So you can see here, by simply moving that chair around, it's automatically snapping to similar entities there. And it even snaps to the ARC entities. Now in this case, when I created that selection, I crossed over the wall, which included 4 lines. And let me just point out, it's just lines. These are not BIM entities. These aren't walls. These are just lines. It could be in mechanical drawing as well. But it had 4 vectors, 4 lines that it passed over. So when I try to pass it over other entities, it won't snap unless they match those same lines. But I have more flexibility if I simply select differently. In this case, I'm doing copy guided and only crossing over 1 line. Now I've got more flexibility, and any line that I pass up against, it's able to automatically snap to. So there's all kinds of things you can do with copy guided. I have to show you more examples because I was having a lot of fun with this. So over here, we've got a door, and actually this just happens to be geometry. It's not even a block. It could be, but it's not. Using copy guided, I'll do my selection window around that door area. And again, it detects the guidelines. And as I pick to place the door, notice that it's not only copying the door, it's actually trimming the lines away automatically. Again, this is just plain old geometry. There's no intelligence. It's just geometry, okay? Which is great. That's a lot of fun. But then, to make it even better, what if you erase those doors and now you want to repair those lines, okay? You can use copy guided. There's a region tool or a region option. So if you just select what you want to replace it with, which is just, in this case, a bunch of lines, and then specify the region option. Now, as I pass over that same kind of geometry again, it snaps to those guidelines, and it replaces, it erases the door, and it cleans up those lines. Okay, that's pretty cool. I had a lot of fun with this. Okay, one more example to show you. Okay, yeah, you can clap. Okay, last example I want to show you is here we've got an opening, and on the other side of the room, we want to reproduce that opening. Using copy guided, I'm actually crossing over the corner of that room and selecting that whole opening, which again is just lines. And then notice that it's got more vectors. Now it knows that it's a corner, and it automatically snaps to a corner. Okay, super intelligent, minimal work for me to do, no thinking involved. All right, that's copy guided. So the next thing that I want to show you, this is everything I showed you so far is in V20. You'll see that and have access to that very soon. The next thing I want to show you is the parametric functionality. So this is beta functionality. It's something that we're looking to in the future, not available right away with V20, but I do want to give you a look at that. Okay, so here we've got a door symbol, the geometry to make up a door symbol. And what we want to do is just turn this into a block. Right now it's just lines, arcs, polylines, okay? So using the Parametric Block tool, which might look a little familiar to you, you can enter the name of the block and select the entities that you want to belong to the block. But you'll notice on the right side that there's additional tools specifically for parametrics. And what I'm going to do is select guidelines here, similar to what we saw with copy guided. And then I'm going to use the auto constrain option. So using auto constrain, it knows now, because it knows that it's got parametrics with it, it adds it automatically to the parametric block table. And in there I can either open or insert blocks from that panel. Here we can see all the parameters that it automatically added to the block definition. And then I can animate those to see how they behave. And if you look at the ends of the doors and where the door meets the guidelines, as I animate, you can see that there are actually some things that it's missing, right? It's some other parameters that are applied, and it missed the ones that I want. You have complete control, and with the animation, it's very easy to see what you might need to add. For example, I saw that there was no perpendicularity between the ends and the sides of the door, so I add a perpendicular constraint, and then just add a fixed constraint to make sure we know a stationary point within the block. And then there's other things that I can do. I can always use the auto constrain tool and add automatic constraints again. If those constraints would over-constrain the drawing, then it will tell me, it will give me a message that some of those constraints couldn't be applied because it would over-constrain the drawing. And you can always go through and look visually at what constraints are applied, and you can add and remove them manually. Or if you add more geometry as well, you can add constraints. But what's really powerful here is the ability to see these visually within the drawing as well as in the parameters list, and to be able to animate those. You don't have to insert the block and then test it out in your drawing. You can animate it within your parameters panel and see what needs to be done. So here we see that we're getting closer. We've got the door width working, and then we still now, because some of those parameters with auto constrain weren't applied until we removed some of the parameters we didn't want, and now we reuse auto constrain, and it knows enough not to apply constraints again if they're already there. Again, animating, and now that block's looking pretty good, and I never had to go out and test this block. I just animate it. Now what we can do, I'll just add one more constraint here, and that's for the angular constraint, where I want to create that for the door swing. Now it comes up with default names like Ang1 or P2 or whatever, but I can give those meaningful names. So I'll just call that swing for the door swing, and width for the door width. And you can go through and you can actually control the visibility of these parameters as well, because as you can see here, I've got a lot of parameters, and those might be a little scary, and you don't want your users, especially if you're a CAD manager, you don't want your users to modify all of those. So there's properties here in the parameters panel where you can change which ones are exposed. For example, some of these parameters, maybe that control the thickness of the door or some of the other properties, I don't necessarily want anybody to change, so I can turn those off so that they're not exposed in the actual block definition. Then once you've got your block set up just the way you want, which is easy again to see by animating it, you can go ahead and open up your drawing that you want to insert it in, and very easily from that parameters panel, you can drag that block over and insert it into your drawing. So looking over here, we see the block definition. Simply drag and drop it into the drawing. Those guidelines, just like we saw with copy guided, help us easily place the block. And then we can select and modify properties of individual blocks, or because we're doing this within the properties panel, we can also select multiple blocks at the same time. So here we can change the door swing. That was the one block selected. Selecting multiple blocks and going to the parameters, we can change all of those door swings at the same time. And same with the width as well. That's one example of creating a block definition. That was using auto constrain. I'm going to stay in this door theme, but again, even though I'm talking about architectural drawings here, this can be done with any type of 2D block. Right here, we've got a different door, and instead of using auto constrain, what we're going to do is use flip and visibility constraints. So again, using the parametric block dialog box, we create the name of the block, and then I'm going to select just the entities that I want to be displayed in every visibility state. Okay, and then guidelines, just like we had again with copy guided, we'll specify the guidelines. And now I can very easily add flip constraints, and I could remove, maybe I want only horizontal or vertical, and I could rename them to something more meaningful. And then I can very easily add visibility states. So I can give those meaningful names. For example, I want a swing visibility, so I can control the door swing, the visibility of those different swings. And I can select which entities belong to each of those swings. I've got a 90-degree swing, an 60-degree swing, selecting just the entities for that particular visibility state. And then I can go on down and do the 45 and the 30 and a closed one as well. So this is just a different way. We had a block definition, the one we created before, that used parameters where we could enter the degree value of the swing. But imagine any kind of block where you have visibility that you want to show. You can do that using these visibility states. So doing that, again, saving that, it automatically adds it to the door or to the parameters panel, and I can again drag that new block definition into my drawing. And with those guidelines, it automatically snaps. And again, I can select those. Now you see, because we have flip states, we see the graphic indicating that we have flips. And if we look at the properties for that, we can see and actually visualize as we pass over the different options in properties, we can see it flip either horizontally or vertically. And then also the same thing with those many swing visibility states that we added. So just a whole different way of doing it, but easy, really intuitive to use. All right, that is a quick look. Again, that is preview functionality. This will not be in V20 when it ships, but it is something that we are looking at and is coming our way. All right, give it back to...
Thanks, Heidi. Heidi Hewett, everybody, BricsCAD product owner. Of course, these were kind of the cool, showy things that jumped off the screen, but for a CAD engine to really work well, there has to be a lot of internals and plumbing and fundamental classes of technology that need to work. And you're going to get a look at some of that in a big way right now, as our head of core development, Hans de Bakker, is going to take you through a variety of demo scenarios that I think you're really going to enjoy. Keep your eyes open for the performance enhancements. Oh, and by the way, did I mention this is all done in DWG? Take it away, Hans.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Now, at Bricsys, we develop lots of wonderful new technology, but we keep looking back at the basics all the time. How can we improve them? Because if we can improve the core, that ripples through to everything that is built on top of it. So it's important. So I invite you to join me and go and have a look at the basics, like drawing a line, quite basic. So let's draw a line and have a look at that. And by the way, did it occur to you that in most CAD applications, you do not draw a line like pick a point and then pick the next point? What happens is you pick a point, you move the mouse in some direction, and then you start keying in values. And then you move it in another direction, and you key in values. It's not really drawing lines. So we thought, how come? Well, if you want to draw accurately and not have a dozen decimals of garbage with every click that you do, you need to key in those distances, or you need a grid. But most grids are inadequate because they don't orient along with you, they don't follow you. They are fixed, and they use a fixed step size, which is convenient for this situation, but not for the next one. So, how do we draw lines in BricsCAD? You click your first point of your line, and then you see here the length is indicated, and it jumps by values of 10. If I go to bigger distances, I switch to meters. Initially I was at centimeters. The switch is automatically. If I go back and I zoom in and it becomes a very small line, I switch to unit millimeters. If that's not enough, I go back and then I go to tenths of millimeters. And you see, I always can draw accurately. And this grid, it follows me at whichever angle I want to choose. Because another grid, if you start drawing at an angle, that grid becomes your enemy, because you cannot pick the location that you want or need. So in BricsCAD you can draw lines. That being said, let's draw 2 lines. And what else can we do? Basic stuff. Well, how about a rectangle? Now, if you draw a rectangle, again, you have the same tools. And that's all very fine as long as that rectangle is aligned with your main axis. The moment you want to draw something aligned here with this, then either you need to fumble with snapping settings that you change or with installing a UCS. But often, looking for improvements, it's not rocket science. Often it's just a natural extension. Those are the best improvements that you can find. So we notice that when you are in 3D and you, let me just, something weird happened to my code. That's now what you can do when you draw, for instance, a rectangle. If I hover this face, you see it lights, and I can lock it. It's my UCS that's being locked. I can unlock it by tapping it again. But I can draw on top of that face, and I can draw on other faces that I also can lock. You see it become blue, and then not blue when it's not locked again. So here I draw on the side face. Now, how about if we could use that same technology in 2D? Let's give it a try. So we extended the dynamic UCS and now allow it to be applied for other entities. So we again draw that rectangle, and now if I approach this line, you see the UCS triangle that is being depicted. This is a temporary dynamic UCS. If I hover here, this is my temporary dynamic UCS. So I can just approach the entity and draw the thing I want. I can also lock it. So here I can move away my cursor any place, or once that it's locked, I can key in values, like in this temporary coordinate system, say I want a value 50 by 29, whatever, and I start drawing. So dynamic UCS now is available for any kind of entity. As I said, it's often in the simple things. So how can we save time for you? For instance, if you want to know what is the location of this vertex, Well, as you see, I just highlight it, and the moment I highlight it, I get the position of this vertex. There's no need to start a command like ID or whatever. And in fact, the best commands are those that you don't have to pick on some menu or a ribbon, or no, they are always there at your fingertips. What are the 4 most frequently used editing commands in CAD? Well, they are, commands to move, or to move freely without restriction, which is newly added. They are the commands to rotate, and there's mirroring. Now, did you see that in fact I didn't start any command? I only, instead of selecting short with a short click as I did, I selected by clicking just a tiny bit longer. And wherever I want these 4 most used commands and I need them, I have them immediately. I don't go to the ribbon to pick it. The best commands are the commands that you never enter. And along a similar vein, another example of the best commands that you never enter is like nearest distance. Whenever you select 2 items, we show you the nearest distance. And we have improved it, so now the green value is the one along the green, the y-axis, the red value along the x-axis. What happens if I move entities? You see, these values come along, and now it shows me that my x value is 21. I could move my entity until it's in the location that I want to use, and every time check back. But you know, this is not simply information that we show. This is, again, a command. This is the move command, but in a very refined way. If I want this distance to be 50, then I just key it in. If I want this distance to be 100, then I just key it in. It's as simple as that. It's always there, available. So we look at the basics, and you can use this wherever in BricsCAD, wherever you're working. Also in 3D, you know, like I select this line, I select this top face, I get these distances. If I want the height to be 200, that's how much time it takes. Very convenient, this tool. Now, of course, you're not always drawing with some few tools. So performance is also important for ease of use. And for performance, well, I will use a bigger drawing. And let's look at how it was in V19. This is really a huge drawing, by the way. It's containing 500,000 entities. So if you redraw that, you need to draw actually millions and millions of line segments before it's there. And that's also what happens if you want to move such a huge amount of stuff. You select it. It indicates here in the corner that it has selected 500,000 entities. And then I pick a point, and this is V19. And now you see the dynamics that are being drawn, and it's very shaky. And now my cursor is stuck. And it's really inconvenient if you have to draw like that. So let's have a look now how this is done in V20. We worked on that. So also we zoom out. And we start the move command, select the bunch of lines, and all of the city of Prague is selected. And now we start moving it. And look at how smooth this goes. I can move it anytime, any place. Shall I move Prague a bit more to the left, dear? Or, yeah. So now with V20, no more worries. Next time someone asks you to move Prague a bit more to the left, you say, why, of course. It's there. No problem. Other things that may help you is if the orbiting, so the tools that you use just to orbit your view on screen, if that works convenient, if that works as you expect it. That's what it's all about with software. It has to work predictable, as you expect it to reply. Now, the difficult part here was that if you point in empty space, then let's have a look at how it behaved in V19. If I click in empty space and I start to rotate, everything's gone. That's not predictable. So let's go back now to V20. I'm in empty space, and it is as if there's some virtual point there that I can rotate about. It really helps you, and it saves you time. It makes it more pleasurable to use. Other things that help, we are always looking for how can we improve the user experience. Users have been asking us, I think it's the most frequently requested feature ever, Viewport Maximize. And what it does is that if you click in a viewport to activate it and you start zooming, then the scale is changing. And that's not what you want. You want to keep that scale. Okay, you could lock the scale. We have added a tool, by the way, to lock the scale. But that has other inconveniences which you want to avoid. So instead, you just double-click on the border, on the boundary, and now you can work on the item that you want to work. And if you have finished, then either you click again on the boundary here at the side, and you see that the original scale is preserved and restored. Other ways to do the same is, so you key in, and then from the right-click menu there is Minimize Viewport. But this is a very handy tool, so we are adding those handy tools. And because performance is important, we often work on performance. Here we worked on performance of silhouette lines. And don't get fooled, this is a heavy drawing, because you see I've created a forest of these things. It's thousands. But it helps to illustrate, like in V19, if you had this view and you wanted to switch to a layout view, then you see I get this blue weight cursor. It's lovely, but after a while, you've had enough of it. So in V20, look at the speed of switching back and forth. It's like 1 second. And that is while the other version is calculating. So let's go back to V19. It's still crunching. Now we're there. So I think there's an improvement. For sweep commands, well, we try to make them also more user-friendly by making them more direct modeling, so that you get immediate feedback of what you're doing. Much like if here you are push-pulling this face, you get immediate feedback. That's nice to work, that's what you want. So let me just activate another snap. And here, with the same face, let's now use this new tool. It's a new variant of sweep. It's interactive sweep. And I want to sweep, let's say, along this edge. You see, now I can really control that sweep as I go. And as I go further, I control how it continues. And I want it to go this way, now I want it to go that way. Let's go up again. And now as the finishing touch, you see, it creates this mitre at the end. Not bad. So that's a new sweep direct modeling variant in V20. Now, this year in V20, there's a present. There's a present that we received from the BIM team. And everybody who has a Pro license now can use this BIM functionality. The functionality I'm talking about is this one. It's drag. And what it does, it allows you to drag solids in a connected way. Or if you press the Control key, in a disconnected way. Control key again, and I have it in a connected way. Same thing here. Watch the green solids. They have shrunk. The blue solids have become longer. These are just ordinary solids. The only thing is they touch each other. That's enough to get that functionality. Here the same thing with that wall. Watch the connections. You see the connection at the top here goes along. This mitered connection goes along. Now, as we got this present from the BIM team, our shape team could not stay behind, so they said, well, we'll throw in the render materials panel. And also, at the same time, some nice material definitions. So all you have to do is you'd click and drag, or you let it drop. And that's all you need to simulate. If you want to do the same thing for the wall, or if you don't like it, there's this erase tool that it resets your material definition. So yeah, there's a nice present that we got from the other teams, all available in the Pro license. And when we are talking about the way that things look and their shape, then we come in the neighborhood of point clouds. And point clouds, we get more and more requests for that. So we've been working on that. Notably, one of the things that we've been working on is better cooperation with our competitors. Here, this is AutoCAD 2020, and I'm loading a point cloud that is processed for AutoCAD. It's a recap file. And in BricsCAD, we have switched format. And when I now open this same file, it's here. It says it's already in use. Yes, it's in use in the AutoCAD session, so it's really the same file. And I open it, and I get this message here at the bottom. It says that it started pre-processing the recap data, and it is translating it and re-indexing it to the BricsCAD format. The BricsCAD format is now using the same format as we are using for our virtual reality module. And it allows very fast moving through the points. And also it allows nice stuff like dynamic point resizing. Why would that be important? I will show you in a moment. Now, while this indexing is going on, let's have a look at some bigger point clouds. This is a 1 billion point cloud, approximately. And just to make it easier to see some of the stuff, I will activate a section plane here. I'll do that again. Yeah, like this. So it's rather fast, you know, to clip away. And I can zoom in and move through that huge point set. I can do the same for other point clouds. So you see all these drawings, they are loaded in one session. So the workload on your processor is really minimal, while in the background there's also the other point cloud processing that is going on. Now, how hard is it also to clip that up? Because in the other drawing, I had my section plane already there. Just look, I drag a section plane over here, and that's all it takes. It's very fast. And you can use this is the dynamic point resizing, by the way, that you see going on. It looks for the optimal point size, because such point size is important. If you look here, then what you see at the left side in AutoCAD is in fact that you are looking through a wall, because the point size is not very nicely chosen. The point size here is chosen just the same as in other locations. And when you have measured a lot of points, like in this area, there you get a nice view. But where the density of the measurement is less, then you're just looking through it, and it's very difficult to see what you get. So, oh, by the way, you see this message popping up. There's somebody coming to alert me that the point cloud pre-processing is ready. So we can go and have a look there. And is there something that strikes you in the quality of this image if you compare it with this one? It's an example of why it is important. And how come? Well, if we zoom in, then you see here we use very big pixels where there was no dense measurement. And here we use a small, this is a half size in between, and here we have a lot of points, and there we can use small pixels. So in this blown up view, it allows you a bit better to see what exactly, why that matters, that dynamic point resizing. Now, finally, along with the increased demand for big point cloud size, we get increased demand for big images that people want to attach, and also for very old formats that are still alive, like fax format, CCIT G4, I think it is called. That one we added support. We added support for virtually every TIFF variant that exists out there. Let's just load such big TIFF. Well, first I will load a regular TIFF file. And similar to what you've seen with the point clouds is that we give you a message that we start caching, we start indexing. We in fact create a multi-resolution format. We store the image at multiple resolutions, which greatly enhances the way you can work with it. While this conversion is on its way, let's have a look. These are the fax format things that we now support. And as I said, we also support BigTIFF. And what is BigTIFF? Well, has anybody heard about a petabyte? A petabyte is 1024 terabytes. So it's quite big. Now, a BigTIFF file holds 18,000 petabytes. Quite a lot. Now, here, what you see at the left is a BigTIFF image, the black thing. I'm just zooming back. Ah, there's something coming. And I'll draw a line across. It's 5 point some kilometers, it's 3 miles, say. So now look at the density that these guys get, because this is made with drones, and these drones take thousands of images and they are stitched together. And look here, you see the tire marks, and you even see the wires on the poles, the electric wires, you can see them. So this is incredibly detailed. And that's where we are going. It's the future, so we better be prepared. And you remember this image of Melbourne that we showed years ago. That's when we developed the technology that is behind it. And what we had to do to show you that the power of that technology is stitching together hundreds of images. Here you can see the stitching. So this is a 60 gigapixel image. You see the speed at which that is handled is just as fast as I can scroll my mouse. It goes along. Now, same thing with BigTIFF. We're just preparing for the future. And meanwhile, you see, the other one has been pre-processed and it's available. And it's also made with a drone, and these are multiple images that are stitched together, because it's unlikely that you would have two exactly the same cars that are there, or two exactly the same trucks. No, these are two different moments. Okay, thank you for your attention. This is the future, where we're heading.
How cool is that? Hans de Bakker. So the core of BricsCAD, there's just a couple of things I want to say because he's too modest to say it. That was done on a laptop. What was running on that laptop? AutoCAD, V19, V20, all at the same time. No real special graphics card. It's all done in DWG. No proprietary formats. So is anybody else doing that in the market? Is anybody else doing the AI features that we've shown you? I haven't seen it. So what do you guys think of BricsCAD V20? Very good. And one last thing before I hand it over to our next presenter is we're very proud of the fact that we actually went out and did the legwork and the research to speak to our customers, and we heard their points of pain, and that's in large measure where the specification for V20 came from. So let's continue that conversation. So come talk to me. I can help you with implementation issues, talk to us about features, let Heidi know what you might want to do. Maybe you want to be a beta tester in the future. Talk to us. We're available. We're going to be around for the next couple of days. So, okay, please. What I'd like to do now is introduce Frederik van Hooijen. He is going to talk to you about the BricsCAD 24/7 proposition and fill you in on what's happening with our common data management environment 24/7. So welcome, Frederik van Hooijen. I hope I didn't butcher your name, dude.
No, it's okay. Right. Thank you very much. Hey, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the talk so far. As you can see, I'm Frederik. I'm the product owner for Bricsys 24/7, and we're going to show you some really cool stuff. But first of all, I'd like to reiterate what Hans, Robert, and Heidi said, which is that we're listening. And because we're listening, it allows us to do what we really love to do, which is develop great software, which makes all of you more successful. I'm sorry. The dark UI looks absolutely stunning. The newly added civil features open up a whole new world of possibilities for our customers. And as you can see, the sheer speed at which our artificial intelligence is being improved will have you having real conversations with BricsCAD quicker than you can say Skynet. Something's missing though, right? Collaboration has always been very important during design and construction. And a wise man told me that all the designs in the world wouldn't have mattered if they didn't end up in the right hands. Now, somewhere between using file runners, postal pigeons, and using email, something became very apparent. There's got to be a better way of sharing files. A better way where you can just grab a file, make some modifications to it, and then share it back to your fellow designers so they know what to do. A better way where you can work on a drawing, but in the meantime, you get notified of changes being made by your colleagues, so you can make sure that nothing actually gets lost. A better way where you can go on site for an inspection with the drawings, notice something's off, and flag the issues right there in the relevant drawings. I'd like to introduce you to the better way. The better way involves a mobile application where, as I said earlier, you can just go on site, do what you have to do, have all the documents with you. You can run around, make sure everything is as designed, is as it says in the spec, and if it's not, you can immediately flag it and alert the people who need to be alerted to fix the issues. A better way involves close integration with the design software that you're using, along with the collaboration software that you're using, so you can work in your trusted BricsCAD environment and immediately collaborate with your colleagues. And of course, a better way involves a fully featured cloud application where you can collaborate with whoever you need to collaborate to make sure that either your design process, the construction process finishes as, as successfully as possible, so the customers are happy. Now, to do this, we have on the one hand our enterprise offering, which is the one you might have already heard of. We're also introducing a new flavor of Bricsys 24/7, which is aimed toward design teams. Now, this new flavor contains all the features that are necessary for collaboration, and it looks a bit sleeker too, I'll admit. Shout out to our design and our front-end teams. They've been working very, very hard on this for the last year. They'll continue to work very hard on it for the coming months to make sure that all the cool stuff in the new version will be included in our enterprise offering as well. Now, there's one small surprise actually. Eric mentioned it very briefly during his introduction, which is that the Bricsys 24/7 for design teams will be available for all BricsCAD V20 maintenance customers for free, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Thank you. Now, if I've piqued your interest, I'm sure I've done, because the mobile application looks amazing. Bricsys 24/7 for design teams looks amazing. Our integration in BricsCAD looks equally amazing.